So when we first realised that we weren't going to have students travelling, and it looks like they're not going to be travelling for quite some time now, we actually sat down and we looked at every single facet of what happens when a student comes in country and how we had to change everything to do that. And this is what we came up with. So in mid-year, we ran a couple of programs. We ran a major one for Deakin, which had 30 students in a program here. And then we had a few other individuals, one of whom is Sophie, that I will introduce in a little while. And she was hosted by Nordin, who's also on this, this session. Excuse me. So when we did this, we actually took every single part of it and we spent months just reworking every part of it. So pre-departure, we still have pre-departure and orientation, everything's online. Instead of the welcome packs, all the information that's in the welcome pack is in a student support portal that we now provide, plus we still mail t-shirts and things like that. We used to do something called the race around Kuala Lumpur or Bangkok or Ho Chi Minh City, where people run around, where students run around in teams and look at, find a whole bunch of different stuff in KL and take photos and things like that to get to know how the rail system works and all that sort of stuff. So we can't do that, of course. So we actually set up something where they do it online as well, which was which got really good feedback actually from especially from the Deakin group. It worked really well. We have, because students don't get the cultural immersion, we've put in different things that allow them to try and get some cultural understanding. And for the program that will run over the summer period, we will have the language and culture will be running every week as part of that, just a normal part of the program, so that students get an ongoing access to a bit of language and ongoing cultural understanding. Still have all the follow-up and support, but of course it's not necessarily the 24-hour support that we used to provide in case people were sick and things like that, but we do provide program support in terms of trying to make sure that things are still working properly for the students and also for the hosts, to make sure that the students are, fronting up and engaging properly and things like that. Instead of the networking that we normally do with the government, with MABC, with professional organisations, we're doing those. We're doing them all online. And as I said, the weekly passer goes in with the language stuff. And we still do the farewell and debrief, but instead of dinner and a certificate presentation, that's done online as well, and the certificates get mailed. So every single facet of the program has been changed to work out how we do it. So the pre-departure, we often work in with universities where we might Skype into or Zoom into a pre-departure. We also have our own pre-departure. We actually play a larger role in that usually with the university now in terms of what we provide. And of course we do a lot of this through our communications program that students get before they come. Orientation, orientation looks a little bit different because it's not so much focus on, things that are in country, but more things like about working from home and, that etiquette and how to engage and all that sort of stuff. Still give all that cultural stuff that we normally do. And what we normally do with the Kanali Malaysia, we often give that during the pre-departure and then have the students present it during orientation or during one of the follow-ups so that they've got a little bit of time to do it, because it's not quite like just, racing around in the heat for 3 hours when they're here. Also, then the weekly classes that we've got set up, virtual business talks and all the cultural activities. So what we did with the students over the mid-year program was to provide, suggest things that they could be doing online on the weekends and things like that. We had a couple of there was a period during the lockdown here where we had some Malaysian films that were being screened for free online, and we were able to give students access to those as well, which gave them just a little bit more of an understanding about the culture. So the Kanali Malaysia, which is the online version, Getting to Know Malaysia, which is online version of normally the race around the city. And it's actually about just it's fun stuff to try and, sort of get students to understand a little bit about the country and the culture before they go into the companies. So it's difficult enough when you front up here in country and sort of, face to face with people, but to do it online, there's another layer of things, and it's difficult to, be able to you know, you don't have those organic conversations that happen over, you know, people bringing food into work or, you know, just, you know, walking into work and having casual conversations with people. It's a lot more structured, that the remote internship. So it makes it, you know, we've sort of tried to set up some stuff that gives a little bit of background first. So we put the students into teams. For Sophie, she didn't have a team at the time that she did because she was on her own, but we have a global ambassador, and so Marlon kindly worked with Sophie to try and, you know, so it just wasn't something that she was doing on her own. But we gave, we've got a bunch of things that we do in terms of, we got students with the Deakin group, which was a large group. We got them to do, to either, you know, get Malaysian takeaway or go to a Malaysian restaurant before Melbourne was locked down, of course. And some of them actually tried to cook a meal together to sort of, you know, make, which was a bit of fun because some of the teams were international students from India and Sri Lanka, and they were a little bit surprised to find that a lot of the food here is sort of very similar. And we found that so those that didn't know a Malaysian personally, we got them in, put them in touch with the Malaysian Society or the Malaysian Club at Deakin, and so they had to find a Malaysian student and actually interview them, find out a little bit about Malaysia through them, what might be a typical weekend or, you know, what their life was like. That sort of, the students actually really threw themselves into it, which we were sort of, I guess I was a little bit, you know, unsure as to how they would engage with it, because even when they're here in country, sometimes it's, you know, running around in the heat, they sort of, you know, might give up after a couple of hours because it's too hot, and, you know, sort of don't go into everything. So we weren't sure how it would happen, but we were surprised. The university was surprised, and the students really got into it, which was great. So they felt that really helped them sort of set themselves up for what they were going to be. You know, gives them stuff to talk about with the companies. Natasha provides a lot of support through the program. We all do, but Natasha is the first point of contact. She's doing, there's actually more checking in than we would normally do because we're trying to keep things on track, and you know, we know that this is very different for students and for hosts. So Natasha does a little bit more checking in than she might normally, and she still, you know, has to. We still do the first compulsory follow-up session where we get students to do a little exercise that, you know, really gets them to assess their challenges and discover what they've learned and see how they can support each other. I think that's going to be even more important doing that, you know, doing that remotely, and getting people to be able to, you know, sort of check in with each other, even if they're not from the same university. When the students are here in country, they are often, you know, sharing apartments with people from different universities, so they're able to, you know, they sort of look out for each other. So we're going to try and do the same thing over summer with that, you know, people will be able to, you know, still be able to check in with people and provide a little bit of a network to support each other. So we still do the weekly updates to universities, that's just a given. So will be the language and culture program, which will allow us to, while that's happening, it'll provide another opportunity for, you know, checking up on how students are going. And then another follow-up with the SEAL in the middle of the program. The SEAL program is something that we University of Queensland set up many years ago for their students that were travelling abroad, and we've appropriated that for our program. We found it was a useful thing that allowed students to sort of start to work out what are the things that they're learning, and instead of just seeing challenges as things to be overcome, but how they are actually learning experiences. And we found that it helps with reflections and things like that if students actually understand challenges as learning experiences from the word go, instead of just reflecting upon it at the end of the program, when, you know, it's often a bit late and you forget sort of some of the things that you know, that might have been a learning experience. So of course the pros and cons, there were, you know, the pros are there's no travel costs, and there's less cultural adjustment, you know, in terms of heat and food and, you know, having to live in a strange accommodation with strange people you've never met before. And also, you've also got, you're learning all this new technology. I remember Sophie talking about, she was sort of surprised at the different apps and different ways of communicating that people use when working remotely, which, you know, students are used to doing classes online, but that's very different from engaging with a company and working face to face, working online, you know, over a computer. And the cons are, of course, the time difference. We had, in the winter period, we had many students that were, they're all over the world actually. So the time differences for working in teams was a bit of a problem. And I was talking to a friend recently who hosted a virtual intern from the US, and they said it was an absolute nightmare. And they would stick to Australian students in future because there was a 12-hour time difference, and it was almost impossible to, well, it wasn't impossible, but it was very, very difficult for them to engage with the student, and it meant that she was very isolated. Whereas with the 2 or 3, we're coming into a 3-hour time difference between the east coast of Australia and Malaysia. It's manageable. It's the way that, the global student works with all our partners, that it's just something that you sort of get used to. But yeah, when it's and that's why Australia is sort of, keeping it in this time zone works quite well. I think one of the things that is a little bit difficult to get across here is the less incidental, that, the water cooler, photocopier talk. And in Malaysia, of course, in country, everything's about the food. So, people are often, it's about, people going out for lunch or breakfast or even, snacks after work. So that's a sad thing to miss in Asia, because the food is always great in Southeast Asia, but also people are very friendly and are very, all about their food and want to share. So it becomes a big part of understanding the culture, and we miss that as well. Of course, not having, face-to-face, you miss a lot of the contextual stuff in communication, which, can be a little bit difficult. And of course, there are technology challenges. So, as well as we can prepare students, for what's going on, but, it's a little bit different that, you can't just fob off a host like you might a university academic if your computer crashes, and you've got to, get it fixed, because that's what happened with one of the students in mid-year. Her computer died, and she didn't have a backup. So it was, she was, it meant it was a problem for her team, because she was having to try and make other arrangements. So you've got to be thinking, when you're working, it's a little bit different to just being, doing a program online, where if the Wi-Fi goes down or the computer crashes or whatever, you can get special consideration. But, if you're working with a host, you've got to think about how that works. Okay, so I'm going to introduce you now to Sophie. So Sophie is from UTS. So Sophie, just tell us a little bit about yourself, and I'm going to ask you a couple of questions before we go on to Nordin.
As Jen said, my name is Sophie. I study at UTS at the University of Technology, Sydney, and I do a Bachelor of Business and a Diploma in Languages, and I major in International Business. And obviously with COVID-19, as Jen said, travel restrictions, and the whole world is feeling it pretty bad. But I was very excited to come on board with this opportunity of a remote internship in Malaysia. I hope that one day soon I can visit Kuala Lumpur and Malaysia and try some, roti canai myself. But yeah, not possible. But yeah, that's me.
Yeah. Okay. So Sophie, can you tell us a little bit about what was your motivation? Why did you choose to do this, when a lot of students still think they're not sure about undertaking a virtual or remote experience, and universities also are a little bit anxious about what it means. What was your motivation? Why did you decide to do it?
I think I have like a couple main reasons as to why I chose this. Like, first of all, my position at the time really enabled me to take on the opportunity well. I'd come back from abroad. I just finished my study, my semesters, and then I wasn't working, I wasn't really doing much, and I thought, now is a better time than any to try and take on a remote internship and something new and different, especially given, how everyone is trying to adapt with technology. And, I think I'm not that bad with technology, I'm not amazing with it, but I thought, I'll just give it a go. And then I also thought, these days, and as a student, I personally find it really daunting to think that, sometime soon I'm going to graduate, and, obviously sometimes first impressions is just the resume that an employer will see. And if they can see that, you've been able to adapt through such a hard time and doing a remote internship, but also internationally, and that also kind of feeds into my major of international business, I thought this would be a really good opportunity, and it would be a waste to say no. So, there's that employability outcome, hopefully in the future, learning those soft skills as well as, new skills. I mean, with Nordin, I got the opportunity to write a bit and expand my communication skills. I don't even study communications, but Nordin gave me that really great opportunity. And I can say, even though my internship was really short, I did learn a lot in a very short amount of time. And so thanks to Nordin and even with Linda at MABC, I was able to expand my skill set. To summarize your question, I was in the position to do it. I had nothing else to do really. I wasn't working, I wasn't studying, I wasn't traveling. I wanted to expand my skills. I wanted to take on the opportunity, something new that would hopefully help me out in the future as well. That's why I did it.
Cool. And what were some of the challenges? Were there, I mean, there's always challenges whether you're in country, whenever you go into a new workplace, there's always challenges. What do you think might have been a couple of things that were particular to this that you sort of were a bit daunting at first, but you managed to overcome?
Yeah, I think a few challenges that really stood out to me and what I noticed, especially at the beginning, I would say I wasn't very confident in myself, and not just in the fact that this is actually my first internship, but there was that kind of barrier of technology and communication, and I was like, how do I approach this? How do I communicate effectively with trying to coordinate with Nordin and with Linda? And was I overstepping the line? Was I not? I just didn't know these things yet. And that's something you learn along the way, especially with that whole international barrier, me speaking to, let's say, like a super local person who's been here forever, it might be different to someone who is a Malaysian local or has adapted to how Malaysians work. So I was very unsure at the beginning, and I wasn't very confident in how that would happen, but rest assured, like Nordin and the MABC was very, very, very kind and welcoming, and not mean at all. So Nordin's a nice guy. And that was a bit of a barrier. Technology, once again, sometimes just trying to keep on the media. So for example, Nordin and I communicated through WhatsApp primarily. And sometimes I'll leave my phone in another room and I'll be like, oh no, like I have to make sure to keep on top of things and make sure my laptop and my phone is fully charged. And so just adapting to, being so far away, like I might lie around the house in my pajamas all day if I'm not having a meeting. Nordin wouldn't know that, but I was in my pajamas a lot, and trying to keep self-motivated as well. You're not micromanaged, which I also really liked. I liked that independence and freedom to research and do what I wanted. But at the same time, it was really, really keeping on top of myself and really saying, okay, you have to wake up at this time, you have to make sure you do this amount of work today, try and get this done, coordinate this much, and keep on top of things and really manage yourself. Yeah, so I know I kind of just word vomited there a little bit, but it was, the technology, trying to make sure I was on top of that, the communication barrier, especially with the international aspect and the technology and Zoom and things like that. And then also just trying to make sure that I kept an eye on myself and being self-motivated and trying to keep on top of the work and hopefully gain some confidence over time in trying to learn and expand my skill set, which was the aim of the internship in the first place. So yeah.
Yeah, I think you're not alone in being in your pajamas. I think you will find that probably some of your lecturers are doing the same thing, if they're anything like the rest of us. This has become a very common thing. Somebody said to me recently, I saw a meme where somebody said, will people ever wear jeans ever again? I'm thinking, yeah, God, it's one of those things. It's a really different it's a very odd thing, the way that we're living at the moment. So I was talking before about the Canali Malaysia, and that's probably our largest challenge. And I think that's one of the things that, universities have, that's their biggest worry, that students won't get a cultural experience. And that's our concern as well, is that how can we try and make sure that you get something out of it, that you get some understanding. Could you talk a little bit about that, how you felt, getting to understand the culture through what we provided, through interaction with Marlon perhaps, and even with Nordin and Linda, I guess, and what they were able to provide?
Yeah, so I think obviously given the situation, I can't personally be in Malaysia. So just naturally there are going to be things that I'm missing. However, in saying that, I do think that, you know, you and the TGS team really did a good job at trying to make sure we get some sort of experience. So, for example, at the beginning when I was being orientated, Natasha, she kind of did like this presentation and kind of went through all these different aspects of Malaysian culture, Malaysian geography, even some little language words, which hopefully, if I study them enough and I come to Malaysia, using local terms like terima kasih and you know, like, I don't know, mila tabur, please, like, you know, something like that when I go out. So yeah, it was really great to see that I got like a little taste of the culture before I even started that internship with Nordin and the MABC as well. And then Natasha was also really great with checking in with me weekly as well and trying to make sure that I adjusted well and if there's anything that I need help with, which was really great. And I had multiple points of contact. And then with the Canali challenge as well, you know, as you said earlier, I was by myself in this kind of internship experience, which, you know, I think if I had a few buddies, that would be great, but obviously it's just the nature of how it was. And I don't think that impeded my ability to have a great taste of Malaysia or the internship itself. So Marlon is also really nice. I believe he's studying at Deakin in Melbourne. So even though we're a whole state and city apart still, it was really easy to coordinate with because I believe he also did an internship with Nordin. I think it was last year sometime. And he gave me some great tips. And then, so with this challenge, you know, there were so many little quiz steps and identifying like pictures like, oh, what is this picture? And I'm like, I think that's the Petronas Twin Towers. I'm not sure. I'll ask Marlon, I'll just like throw it into a Google search. So yeah, I was able to kind of pick things up. So, you know, if you showed me that building before I started the internship, I'd be like, it's another building, I don't know. But, you know, now I think I've learnt little things, which is really cool. And that Canali challenge, it was a good taste. It didn't take up too much of my time, but at the same time, I think I did learn quite a bit in more of an engaging way, rather than sending me like a list of questions. This was differently, which I liked. So it's a bit more engaging. And then, yeah, we threw together a presentation, and then through a Zoom meeting, we kind of presented together. And from his experience and his like pictures that he's taken from his phone like a year ago, plus the things that I've learnt online and with him, it was kind of great taste. So that was a fun challenge, and Natasha initiating me, and then even through Nordin and the MABC, it was really cool to hear how their everyday life was working in Malaysia and what they did on a daily. And I know Nordin's a really super busy guy, so sometimes we'd be on a WhatsApp call and he's walking through the train station and I'm like, oh, that's all the train station is. Now I know.
I mean, that's cool. You also, you were lucky. You had a very Malaysian workplace, and you also had a more Australian type workplace, I guess, with Nordin. So you got a little bit of both worlds there, which was really cool as well. And I think having Marlon was probably, you know, he's a very switched on young man. One of the things that we're doing this summer is that we're working with one of our partners to do some more of that Canali stuff in Australia. So working with the university to bring in, you know, the Malaysian Student Association, or do stuff on campus, or together as a group that you know, bring in Malaysians that are on campus to actually do some of that stuff rather than just doing it all online. You know, middle of the year it was a bit difficult with all the lockdown, and it's still that way in Melbourne. But you know, by the time we run the program in January, hopefully that won't be locked down, and we're actually looking at how we can work with the international student on campus to actually provide some of that. So they will be having face-to-face with other Malaysians and doing stuff that might just make it a little bit more tactile, I guess, you know, than just online. So that will be cool. We're all learning all the time, trying to find ways to make that part work really well. Thanks, Sophie. I'm going to switch over to Nordin now. So hi, Nordin. Thanks for joining us. I know that you're out at a university campus on your way to another meeting. Nordin, if you could just tell us a little bit about who you are, you know, what you do here, and and then perhaps your first question is, again, like, you know, how different was it? You've been a host for the Global Student on many occasions. You're one of our regular hosts. How different was it, you know, taking up this opportunity to host Sophie?
Well, firstly, thanks, Jen, for the opportunity to host Sophie. I think she was a wonderful candidate, and you know, the fact that even before we had the hosting, you knew that, you know, you guys did the work to make sure that we got a good candidate. And I think that's in a sense 90% of the work done for us. And I think that's something that we appreciate, that you find candidates which will fit into our organization. Of course, you know, during that time was the lockdown, and it was during a difficult time in Malaysia, a difficult time in Australia, and of course a lot of things have changed, a lot of things have improved, you know, in the scenario. But the one thing that's not changed is the ability to travel, and I think this is one thing that we were kind of excited, and we kind of knew that we had to embrace this new reality that yes, you know, we need to get work done, but sorry, you can't travel. So for us also, it was part of our organizational learning to have an intern from Australia, you know, who does things virtually, and 100% virtually, you know. And I think we usually, you know, we have now in our organization we have very much a blended reality where, you know, we've met everyone who works for us, you know, and you know, sometimes we meet them, sometimes we'll do a Zoom, sometimes we'll do a WhatsApp call, but in a sense, and we only know it now, is that the reality of employment may be that way, that there will be people who work for you that you never actually meet in person. Of course, we hope to see Sophie in KL, and you know, we have plenty of roti canai waiting for you when you get here. But for us, primarily, the key concern was, you know, are we going to be able to give a good experience also to our interns? We pride ourselves in having the best interns and doing the best for them and making sure that they get the most out of their internship as well. So that's also part of it. So I'm happy that we got a chance to work with Sophie and Jan and Natasha and everyone who put this together, and of course Marlon, you know, helped out on the cultural side of things. So one, I think the new name of the game is going to be teamwork. The new name of the game is going to be more flexibility, more utilization of kind of whatever technology is in front of you right now. And that's going to be the medium of exchange, whether it's a laptop or a handphone or whatever it is that you've got. So I think, you know, we will continue down this path. You're on mute, Jan. Sorry.
I was going to ask, how did you find the managing of the work? How did you manage Sophie, I guess, you know, when you're not seeing her every morning, or you know, she's not coming into a physical office? How did you manage and you know, make sure that she was staying on track with the work that you wanted?
Sure. One thing that we did, we put together daily deliverables and weekly deliverables, and you know, the fact that it was such a short internship, it just flew by so quickly. And I remember the last week, you know, Sophie saying, "Oh, next week I'm going back to class." I'm like, you know, is that right? You know, call your professors and tell them you're busy for another 3 months. You know, it just flies by. And I think it's again about work management, and it's about setting daily objectives, and weekly objectives, and then overall objectives. One of the things that I wanted Sophie to do, and it's something that we get all our interns to do, is we kind of like to make a wish list of all the important people that you want to meet, you know, either here in Malaysia or even when you go back to Australia. And usually we do more than one, but I'm pleased to report Sophie did get to meet with, you know, one of the leading economists in Australia. You know, and it was done virtually. You know, and you know, it was again, it's like the nature of the game. You know, so again, one day, you know, Sophie should meet with, you know, Tim Harcourt in person.
Yeah.
But she's now got the experience of understanding you can meet anybody in the world right now, and get hold of them, and in fact sometimes it's easier to see them because they also are tuning into a Zoom call or a WhatsApp call. So some of those takeaways we like to give, and I hope Sophie continues down that path of meeting important people to the point where she becomes an important person herself.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Yeah, no, I think that's it. And that's part of it. I think that we're getting a sense with the hosts that we're working with that there is a lot more structure around the internship these days, because I guess it's the way that we work at the Global Students. The way I work with my team is each week we work out, what are we needing to get through this week? And then we check in morning and sometimes in the evening, where are we at? What are we doing? And I'm noticing that that's what hosts tend to be doing with the remote internship as well, that there just seems to be a little bit more structure rather than sort of just rocking up in the morning and what are we doing today, where it may be a bit more fluid sometimes, where you're just working in with the team. And I think that's something that that hosts are reporting doing, and I guess they're doing it with their own staff, so to do it with an intern is not so different, I guess, so I think that's helpful as well. What you are, I think you've already answered my next question, which was, what did you help do about, the cultural stuff? We've had, we in fact at the Global Student had lunch with Sophie one day, just to have a chat with her and see how she was going. And I know that one of my friends one day, she had a group, one of my friends that I was out hiking with here, and she had actually a deacon group, and she was, while we were hiking, she was stopping and taking videos and, photographs and things like this. So what are you doing, And she said, I'm videoing our hike for my students so that I can show them this is what I do on weekends. So we found that that host was sort of keen to do that sort of thing. And I think perhaps I was going to ask you what you did, but I guess you've already answered that with talking about what you do with introducing her to people and things like that. I can see that Danielle is here from Sophie's University. You don't have any questions, Danielle?
Yeah, I do. Sorry, I just unmuted myself. Hi, Jan.
Hi, Danielle.
Hi, Sophie. It's great to hear a perspective, and I think it's really important to hear the benefits of the student. Sophie, can I just get you to just, in terms of, you mentioned before that you'd been overseas. Did you feel that you still got the Malaysian sense of culture?
Yeah, so when I was overseas, I wasn't in Malaysia, unfortunately. Okay. I'd love to go to Malaysia. I was actually studying abroad on exchange on a totally different program that was run by UTS. And through that program, I also had a really great experience. And I think with the Canali Challenge, I did get a good taste of Malaysia. It kind of made me more aware about Malaysia. Before, I had no idea about the geography. I had no idea about different things about the culture and other things like the local foods. I mean, I knew about, let's say, roti canai. We've been to Mamaku, we have in Sydney here, and I have a few friends who are Malay. So I was like, I definitely know this one. But there are so many other things about the culture that I had no idea about before. And then once I had a bit of an orientation with Natasha and then a bit of an explore with Marlon, it was definitely easier to kind of get a grasp on, who are the Malaysian people and how do they perceive things and how do they interact in their cultural society. And that kind of made it easier for me to go into the internship and have not a bit of like I wasn't forewarned per se, but I was more aware about different things and how I should approach things, and just having a bit more of a bigger worldview on what it would be like. So I think it was a really good taste. Obviously, just given the situation of COVID-19, I'm not fully immersed in it, but that's, a given. And so I'm hoping now that, if the borders open and, the world improves, I can stop over in Malaysia and visit KL and the team at TGS. And everyone.
Yes, I think that Linda would very much, Linda from the Malaysia Australia Business Council would very much like to meet you. She's still singing your praises. So thanks all, and we will meet again soon.